everybody. Welcome to Too Long Didn't Watch, the after show for the one-shot wonders. This is for Episode 1, The Young White Dragon. That did not go how I expected. If you watched my first video, I expected the players to handle that dragon easily, but they did not. So let's go over from the beginning how they did, what changes I had to make on the fly, which I did make a few, and what happened at the end. So right up here on the screen, I've got my notes up. I've got the journey and everything set, so let's just go right from the top. At the beginning, not a big issue. Everybody came down and started talking. I did not expect Chuck to download a voice mod and speak in a robot voice the entire time, but alas, that's what it is. I'll also say I did not expect him to talk about jetpacks and lasers. I eventually corrected him near the end, but not a big deal. We'll just let that one go with jetpacks and lasers in D&D. But moving on. So they talked to each other, introduced themselves. They didn't go to the blacksmith or the shrine, which is fine. They just went right in and got the quest from the mayor. So there I was able to get them headed in the right direction. Everything went right as I planned. Then they began their walk and started to investigate. So they did not roll very well, so I was not able to give them any info on it being anything other than a large flying creature. So they started walking through the plains. When they started walking, they decided to not go stealthily, which they had two robots that didn't have very good stealth on them, so that made it so I didn't have to worry about them sneaking up on the wolves, which made that encounter start fairly easily and straightforward. The bullet came in, and again, they did not roll well enough to determine that the upturned dirt was anything other than what they thought it might be, so I was able to surprise them with that creature. They then handled that fight pretty well, not too many big issues, so that went as I expected. They then continued walking, got to the mountain. I did not expect Mr. Jetpack to fly up to the top, so I had to do a little bit of improvisation on getting them up there, and then only one person rolled for exhaustion, but he passed, so I didn't get any exhaustion points from my players. Then they got into the crevice where the cultists were, and my making them evil worked perfectly. Just like I wanted them to. I wanted them to straight up attack because they were killing those bunny rabbits. So, for those of you that are DMs, great tactic. If you watch Sam during that, he got so pissed off, he just barged right out there and went, no surprise, no nothing. It worked perfectly. They handled those monsters pretty well. Had to deal a little bit with some of the flying, but I was able to divide the PCs into two groups, which worked out great, so that they had to, and even with the tree there in the middle, they got messed up and out of the way. And we can actually, I've got all of my maps still left from before, which maybe, if it's Foundry's going to load today. Guess not. But you can see that, they ended all together up there in the top. Here, I was expecting them actually to try and take a short rest, but they never did. They just went straight on, so they went right into the cave. There we go. My cave's loading, which is nice. So in the cave, they got to the first trap, and I did not know all my players were going to have dark vision, so they had no need to light a torch and walk through. And so the trigger never actually went off. So here, as this was going forward, I had a decision to make. Do I leave it how I planned it, knowing that they're probably just going to walk through and not trigger it? Or do I come up with a new trigger on the fly? I decided to just leave it as it was and give them a feeling of success, or at least a feeling of luck that they made it through a trap without anything going off. Sometimes you want to give your players the successful feeling of either figuring something out or missing something or being lucky. And in this case, I decided to let them go through, and I didn't change that trigger. The next one, the door, that one also worked out pretty well, except it didn't work out how I thought it would. I expected them to see the rock trap. No one did a perception check on the door, so the rock trap fell on them. But then they were able to pick the lock. They made that through, so then I was able to do a little bit of talking with the dragon later on, so that worked out great. Then they got to the dragon fight. So here, if you watched, the players talk to the dragon offered them the chance to, two of them pissed the dragon off. So they said, the dragon straight up said, those two are going to be my meal. The other two, pick which one of you gets to survive and tell the surrounding village about my new domain. With that, the players attacked and the fight was on. I got one breath weapon off, which that took out B1RD, who was in the middle of flying, and so he got knocked down to 0, fell to the ground. He's already making death saving throws. Then the dragon was able to move over to the other ledge, and the two cultists in there were able to distract a little bit, and then I was able to take out Red Streak. The dragon on the second round didn't recharge the breath weapon, so then went in for an attack and a claw, got a couple opportunity attacks on it, I think only one hit, and then the dragon for the third round was able to get the breath weapon off. So that one, that recharge knocked out more, and then the third round recharged again, and that was able to finish it off. So the players died in, I believe it was 4 rounds, total 5 if we had played it all the way through and went through all the death saving throws. So, final thoughts on this if you want to run something like this for your PCs. If you run the same encounters, try and get them a short rest, or highly encourage them to do a short rest after that second encounter so they can get some of their abilities back for that final fight. If you are going to roll in the open, be prepared that what happened here, TPK, could happen to you. I would recommend rolling the breath weapon recharge behind the screen, so that if you realize you are going to be killing everyone and you may or may not be okay with that, you can then fib about whether or not the breath weapon actually recharged. But if you're playing hardcore all rolls in the open, be prepared that may happen. If that breath weapon recharges every single round, you're probably going to kill the PCs if they don't spread out. These players kind of spread out. They kind of got into 2 groups, and I was able to hit at least 2 every time. The other thing I would do to make this a little easier is, instead of doing 2 hard encounters and a deadly, maybe add another encounter so that you have 2 mediums, a hard and a hard, or 3 mediums and 1 hard for the final fight. Spreading that out and adding a 4th encounter in the adventuring day would probably make it so the players could get through this a little easier. But it is what it is. The layer actions also were a big part in this. Those icicles coming down and the fog really did a lot of damage and forced the players to move around and do things they didn't want to do. So those are my thoughts on what happened with this. There were a few times when I messed up some of the rules. I do want to say that's part of DMing. You may know the entire rule book, but most of the time you don't. You may have seen a lot of the players referring to Sam. Sam and I, we've got a relationship, and he is my rules guy. So a lot of the players that we play with will ask him first, and he'll dive right into it. And I'll just sit there and not say anything if I agree with what he says, and I'll jump in if I'm either going to change something or I don't agree. So just a little explanation on that one. There was also another time where we were trying to figure out, I think it was Red Streak's attack bonuses, and whether it was a 9 or a 6. Oh, that was on picking the door. So I knew the DC on that was, I believe it was a 15. You don't want to spend a lot of time opening up the book trying to do the calculations. If you can figure it out in about 30 seconds or so, good to go, great. If you hit that 30-second mark and your players are still sitting there looking up rules, you're excluding the rest of your players from the table. Once you hit that 30-second mark, figure out what you're going to do. In this case, I had a difference between, all right, is it a +6 or a +9? So I told him to go ahead and roll for that sleight of hand check. If the roll had been a 16, 17, or 18, then I would have said, okay, let's take a look. I would have given it another 30 seconds or so to see if we can get the actual number that it was supposed to be. If that was still taking longer, I would have probably lowered the DC or made it make a noise to alert the dragon, or put something in there to adjust the fact that we're not quite sure what it's going to be. He might have succeeded, he might not. So let's give a meet in the middle of something bad to happen, something good to happen, and go from there. So a lot of it's on the fly. Hopefully you agree with what I did. If not, let me know in the comments on how you would have handled it. Again, I'm always looking to improve my game. So if you saw something that you would have done better, or have any comments on how you think that went, please let us know. We'll see you for episode 2.